I'm your host, Vincent Turner, and I'd like to give special thanks to our producer who's going to make it happen today, the very talented Mr. Logan Landers. And our video today is on our 2024 NFL Draft prospect, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of University of Texas. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. We'll surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards Football. The gentleman that'll be helping me today to break down Mr. Worthy and how he's going to perform at the next level. I call him the Phil Collins of the 2024 NFL Draft. He's the most talented guy out there right now covering the draft. Mr. Daniel Kelly of FirstRoundMock.com. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Mr. Turner, I'm doing pretty well. Well, actually, scratch that. I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Getting ready here for the NFL draft, and there's literally about 27 hours of work to do per day, and there's only 24 hours on the clock. So I'm running faster than Xavier Worthy is there on our screen to get it all done.
Yes, sir. Let's get with it. Tell us what you like about Mr. Worthy.
Absolutely. Well, let's start by unpacking the game film. And I talk about this at the top of every show. This is the same drum I keep beating on. And there's a reason I keep beating on as hard as I humanly possibly can, because everything we do at FirstRoundMock.com is founded upon the game film. And so when I talk about, a prospect, every single thing that comes out of my mouth transitions back to, points back to the game film. So in 2022, I looked and evaluated 7 games of Xavier Worthy. In 2023, I looked at him against Kansas State, Kansas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Rice, Wyoming, Baylor, and BYU. And if you go on my site, you can see all the links are right there on his report to hold my feet to the fire on. So that's where I'm coming from on these guys. And unfortunately, it's not all moonlight canoes and all positivity when it comes to evaluating some of these players. But with that said, let me unpack Xavier Worthy. Gotten a lot of hype, a lot of noise on this guy. 6'1", 172. You see him there on your screen. Yeah. I know about the 4.21 40 speed at the combine. Speed kills, right? Well, the bottom line is this, and this is what Bill Belichick, who I worked on staff with, it's the New York Jets when I was in pro scouting there. It's a bottom line business. And the bottom line is in 2022, pointing back to those 7 games I evaluated, I had a 3rd round grade on Xavier Worthy based on that game film. When I identified laziness on all over his game film, it was spray painted on his game film. And then I went back and looked at him at 2023 in the games that I outlined that you can see if you choose to. I've downgraded him on my board to a 5th round grade. So this is 15 games talking. 15 games of me sitting at a table watching and rewatching these plays in slow motion. And this is what I came up with. Why do I have him in the 5th round right now with a 5th round grade? I did not like the feeling I left his 2023 game film with, or his 2022 game film, to be honest. The lack of big plays for someone with this kind of quickness and speed is absolutely alarming to me. And this is the way I would talk if I was sitting in front of all the scouts, directors, the GM, the owner was in the room. If I was a college scout, this is exactly the way I would talk when it came my turn to talk and when my opinion was solicited. This is a guy, we're seeing a raw speed guy who does not look like an NFL starter to me. He looks like a team's number 3, number 4, or number 5, depending on how the roster shakes out and plays out. Someone, maybe, obviously the speed is what it is, but, the type of player a team could find on a waiver wire. He looked like it was just bland looking, considering his full body of work. And that's a big term in scouting. And I said it first in my article at First Round Mock back on January 29th, okay? Now, this was before the NFL Combine, before the 4.21 was clocked. I wrote this. It's documented, time and date stamped. I talked about the fact this is exactly the type of player that would shine at a pro day or an off-season event when he could trade in his football pads for shorts and a T-shirt. When you look at his catch rate, Let's unpack the facts here. Everything I do traces back to evidence. I present these players like I'm in a courtroom. Catch rate, 2021, 60% catch rate. 2022, tailed off to 51% catch rate, meaning he's only catching about half of what's thrown his way. 2023, upgrade to 62%. Definitely some inconsistency there, a little bit of a roller coaster as we go through his catch rate. Worthy's a textbook example of a prospect who people will fall in love with based on raw traits. And that's the problem, because I believe that more mistakes happen when it comes to grading college prospects in NFL scouting departments, college scouting departments. More mistakes happen between the end of the regular season and draft day than any other time of the year, because that's when teams and draft sites, media fall in love with raw traits. Now, ever since that January 29th article, even back then, at that point on the 29th of January, 46.4% of NFL draft platforms were seeing this guy as a first-round pick in the upcoming, groupthink, draft media platforms that are out there. A lot of this, I think about Worthy, and I didn't like about him, Trace in 2023. I mean, no doubt this is a tricky evaluation. There's no question about, because of the raw speed, because of the short area burst, but it does not translate to his game film. The game film never lies. That's the thing here. So when we look at traits, they're great. Don't get me wrong, but they have to show up on the game film. So he what does he look like on film? Well, he looks small and he plays small on film. He's absolutely horrible on contested catches, and he's below average when it comes to his catch radius. He is not going out of his way to catch anything, okay? He has to have, now this is where teams need to grab a hold of this, who are listening. He has to have a quarterback in the NFL that has pinpoint downfield accuracy. I mean, it's got to be right there to have his best chance to prove me wrong in the NFL. What else did I not like about his college tape? He was inconsistent. That's the kiss of death term in the NFL. And he was weak. He lacks playing strength, and that's a major problem when it comes to his route running. Worthy's the type of player who's at his best, I believe, when he's running wide open field, and he's at his worst when he isn't. That may sound funny, but it's not. My attempt is not to be funny there. That summarizes what I would say in a draft meeting. He's decent at yards after the catch, but there's an inconsistency there too. He's not elusive whatsoever in the open field and he gets tackled pretty quickly after most catches. To me, I think a lot of it basically it comes down to this. The more I think about, the more I write about, the more I reflect on it. I think laziness is the big issue here. As far as like drilling down even more, the positive and negatives, let's start with the positives. Quick as a hiccup, naturally. He offers some pre-snap versatility, can line up in a slot, go out wide. He's a determined runner when there's green grass in front of him. He's best on short, uncovered bubble screens. He excels at shallow, intermediate crossing routes that drag across the field and cross the quarterback's face, where he can run away from coverage with that natural raw speed that he has. He needs to be working in open spaces. Unfortunately, there's not too many of those in the National Football League. He's got the raw juice to get deep, but he basically, he's just when it comes to coverage, that's the issue, is getting him open. And he's a willing blocker. The negatives, to go further than what I've already said, there's an inconsistency there that I touched on. He's diminutive. He's at all three route levels. He looks small, plays small on film. Average flexibility, which is huge as far as body adjustment on catches. Undependable is another label that I would put on him. Basically, he rounded off a lot of his routes at route break points. That's also a big no-no in the NFL. If you can't break it off crisp, you're not going to break it off usually against these savvy corners. A lot of rounded corner, a lot of break points. Not good whatsoever on 50-50 balls. and he lacks internal timing when it comes to jump balls in doing that. It's just not good on 50-50 balls. What my summary was in my article was weak lightning in a bottle. This guy is a hard pass for me. I can't emphasize that enough. And basically, when I'm looking at him as an evaluator, he's just not the type to someone who can move the meter unless he goes to a team like the Kansas City Chiefs and gets a quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes, unless he goes to the Houston Texans and gets a pinpoint guy like a CJ Stroud. This is a guy that teams really need to do the work on before they send the card in, because this is one of those speed trap guys that you fall in love with until he puts on the pads, and it's for real. Your thoughts, Mr. Turner, on Xavier Worthy?
Man, excellent observation. I love you, DK.
Well, yeah, I love you too. It's never personal. It's never personal.
It's never personal, because you have been doing this for a long time, and you was at the highest level with the New York Jets that a lot of people out there would dream of being in that position. And you write fantastic articles. That's why I consider you the best in what you're doing. But you know how I am. I'm not hard on these players, but I don't watch a lot of game film as you do. When I look at this young man, Mr. Worthy, I think about speed. And I think about what speed does in the NFL. It really changes the outcome of games. And I think about all the great players that have came into this league with speed, from Tyreek Hill, Joey Galloway, Cliff Branch, Percy Harvin, Mike Wallace, Bob Hayes, Homer Jones, Maurice Green, track star, Usain Bolt, Deion Sanders, Bo Jackson, Chris Johnson, Dante Hall, Willie Gault, Ron Brown. Mr. Worthy has that type of speed. Then, don't get me wrong, I love you, baby. I love you a lot. But he played at Texas. He was a two-time All-Big 12, DK. In 39 career games, he had 197 receptions, 2,700 yards. He averaged almost 15 yards a catch, 26 touchdowns. In Texas, in his last year there, got to the college football semifinals. Now, of course, again, you are the scout. No question about it. I'm not going to step in your territory. I'm coming from a whole different perspective, because I don't look at the game film as much as you do. I look at the positives and I get excited. When I saw the young man as a true freshman in a rivalry game against Oklahoma, he put on the show. 9 receptions, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he clearly was the best player on the field. Then I go back to this story, and I'm going to leave it at this. There was a gentleman when I was 4 years old, and the Dallas Cowboys was my favorite football team. At the time, they had Dan Meredith, Dan Reeves, Pettis Norman, Ralph Neely, Mel Wilford, Cornell Green, and Bob Lilly. When in 1964, they took this receiver out of Florida A&M. And his head coach, Jay Gaither, said at the time, I don't think this gentleman is going to be a good enough receiver, because I don't think he has the football ability to play at this level. Then I question his worth ethic as a football player. And then a great Jay Gaither at Florida A&M. Okay, this gentleman went in the 7th round. He was like, I think, the 288 pick. I can't remember. I might be wrong in that today. But he had 371 career receptions. He had 7,014 yards and averaged 20 yards a catch, and played for my team, the Dallas Cowboys. And he went into the Hall of Fame August the 8th, 2009. But the thing that I look with Mr. Worthy, and I look at his name is Bob Hayes, Jay Gaither at Florida A&M didn't think his own player that played for him was going to be an outstanding football player with all that speed. And I'm saying to myself, Bob Hayes came into the league like Mr. Worthy, no question about the fastest player in the whole league. And then Bob Hayes was coming off Olympic gold medal in 100 meters where he set a world record. And he had to borrow somebody else's spikes because his was stolen. And I think about Mr. Worthy, and I just sit here and I think about your observation. And DK, you always been on point, because you did tell us about Trey Lance. You did tell us about Kenny Pickett. But this gentleman right here, Remember one thing, speed kills. And I'm sure the gentleman, if he goes to the right team, we're looking at the next Bob Hayes with explosiveness. You don't play in the Big 12, my brother, and come up with 197 receptions, over 27 yards, and become all Big 12 twice, and score 26 touchdowns, and average 15 yards a catch. The same observation they had back in 1964, the young man out of Matthew Gilbert High School out of Jacksonville, Duval County, which they had with Bob Hayes. I love that young man because of speed. I love speed because there's no greater feeling where you live at the game or you watching on TV where you see an athlete take it to the house and he run away from everybody. And all I know, I go back to that Oklahoma game, his true freshman year, and he was running from people. Back to you, Mr. Daniel Kelly, today here on 100 Yards of Football.
Oh, Mr. Turner, those are some great observations you make as always. And that's what's so interesting about talking these things out. This is what a college scouting department is like. When people all, they say, okay, it's your turn to talk. They present the information. We go around the room. Everyone presents their information. Everybody shows the same level of respect and admiration for the next guy, next person in the room. That's what it's about. Then at the end of the day, what they do during the scouting meetings is they put on the tape. They say, okay, we got all these different opinions. Where should we put them? Okay, let's put on the tape. Let's discuss this. The thing of it is, and the greats that you've talked about, my response to that is all those guys, what this game comes down to. I mean, I can sit here, we can all sit here and talk about scouting jargon until our faces turn jet green. But here's the thing. It comes down to want. That's it. There used to be a commercial. The biggest muscle in the body is the heart. It comes down to want. That's scouting is essentially. My scouting mentor, he stood in front of an entire college scouting department and he said, listen, guys, bottom line, can he help us win or can't he? That was it. Okay? And that was for your Dallas Cowboys team. He stood in front of the Dallas Cowboys scouting staff and said that. Right? Can this guy help us win? And that's what it comes down to is want, because all the greats that you outlined right there to have those type of great careers in NFL past have had to have the want. It's like going out, I love racehorses. And you sit there and you look at them, and I've been around horses in my life, and in the pasture, they're just standing there. They've either got to be instructed to run or they've got to want to run. Okay, so that's the thing. And if they do run, they'll probably win the race, so they're going to come real close to doing it. So it comes down to want in athletes. And that's my biggest concern, because back when I was with the Jets, the thing that came to mind as you were talking, Mr. Turner, was one of Bill Parcells. He had 6 critical factors of scouting. This is the Hall of Fame Bill Parcells. 6 critical factors of scouting. And one of them I'll never forget is football important to him? That was one of them. And that's what I always circle back to this day. And the game film always unequivocally answers that question. You can always tell by the players like a Brock Bowers who plays every play like it's his last. And you can always tell by the guys who only play when they want to. And you can always tell by the guys who are trying to fake it till they make it, just based on with their effort on game film. That's my concern about Xavier Worthy. That's why I'm so upset about this. I worked my tail off to get into the NFL out of nowhere from a small town in Mound, Minnesota, barely passing through high school and failing out of a small community college. I beat out a stack of Ivy League resumes to get in with the New York Jets that were sitting on the desk. That's what irritates me the most as an evaluator, is when I look at a guy like an Xavier Worthy who has this incredible speed, but he just doesn't care. He doesn't play like it's important to him. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. That's undependable. What does undependability breed in the NFL? Complacency. What does complacency breed? Losing. What does losing? I mean, you just go right down the chart. I'm looking for guys who can move the meter. I'd rather have a guy run a 4.540 that plays his tail off in replay than Xavier Worthy at a 4.21 who picks and chooses when he turns on the Jets. because the guy with the 4 or 5 I can go to war with, and I can win myself a Super Bowl if I'm a GM. That's where my frustration comes in with Xavier Worthy. That's why I still have a 5th round grade on, which is, I had an undraftable free agent grade, you allude, on Trey Lance for reasons. But just the fact I'm still giving this guy a 5th round grade tells me, you know what? It's in him. It's in him, just like that racehorse. It's in him. But he has to make the decision to turn on the jets and to play like a professional on every single play. And if he does and goes to the right system, like you're talking about, the right situation, Mr. Turner, great. If he doesn't, he'll be another one of these guys that has burning speed right out of the league. Those are my final thoughts on Xavier Worthy.
If you like the video today, please comment and share. We surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards of Football. I'd like to give special thanks to our very talented producer who's made it happen today, Mr. Logan Landers. My final words about Xavier Worthy: speed is something that you can't teach. It's God-given. The young man, like I said, I'm not an NFL scout like Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly has a lot more experience and is way much more experience in this game than I am. But I know this. Randy Moss had an up and down career, right? In the National Football League. He was questioned a lot. When you look at Mr. Xavier Worthy, Bob Hayes was questioned a lot back in 1964 by his head coach. Everybody said the legendary Jake Gators. But all I know is Mr. Hayes averaged 20 yards a catch, scored over 71 touchdowns, won the Super Bowl ring with the Dallas Cowboys. And Roger Staubach spoke at his Hall of Fame introduction because Mr. Hayes had went to glory. I'm not saying by no means Mr. Worthy is going to be that type of player. But if I had to have like a couple of $100 to put on it today, I would do, because I love speed. And I love to see these young men out of Fresno, California, yay! Get into the end zone. Y'all be blessed here on 100 Yards of Football. And special thanks to the very talented Mr. Daniel Kelly today.